Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlengi, and the members of the panel, members of the media, good morning. We are here to take you through the priority number 3 and related aspects of the manifesto. So at the outset, we would like to take the opportunity to reiterate our condolences to the families, comrades and friends and communities of those who unfortunately lost their lives in the aftermath of a very successful celebratory manifesto launch in Moses Mabhida in eThekwini. 2 weeks ago, the people and members of the People's Movement and South Africa gathered to express overwhelming support for the progress agenda of the African National Congress. Despite naysayers, the response of our people demonstrated that the ANC is the party of choice for all ages, races, genders, and all peoples of South Africa, irrespective of their religious convictions, social standing, and ethnicity. Several months ago, the African National Congress embarked on a program to review the implementation of previous manifestos and evaluate progress made since the dawn of democracy. We recalled the groundbreaking announcements made at the dawn of democracy by President Nelson Mandela in 1994 to implement the Reconstruction and Development Program, the RDP. These included free health care for pregnant women and children under the age of 6, free housing for the poor, and a massive rollout of water, sanitation, and electricity to those previously excluded. These measures included the promotion and protection of rights of various groups, such as workers, women, youth, people with disabilities, children, and senior citizens, based on the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. The 2024 manifesto builds on the achievements made over the past 30 years of democracy and also to address many challenges that still exist despite those successes. As such, the 2024 manifesto consolidates the democratic gains since 1994. The African National Congress remains focused on eliminating the challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, which are the legacy of colonialism and apartheid faced by our country. To achieve this, several measures will be employed, amongst others, lifting the social wage of every South African, particularly those who are living in poverty, those who are unemployed, those who live in child or women-headed household, and or live in rural and underserviced areas. These measures have over several years resulted in significant gains in which South Africa has reduced poverty rates from 71% in 1993 to under 56% in 2020. Those millions who have benefited from the social wage and government programs are the real tinswalos that the President spoke about during the SONA. Even though South Africa has displayed a modest average 7% inflation rate compared to other nations, some of whom are in the triple digits, today we bring to life the aspirations once expressed by our founding father, Tata Madiba, when he once said, and I quote, "As long as many of our people still live in utter poverty, as long as children still live under plastic covers, as long as many of our people are still without jobs, no South African should rest and wallow in the joy of freedom," unquote. Priority 3 of the People's Manifesto directly engages with the high and unaffordable cost of living currently being experienced in our country. This represents the most pressing bread and butter issue that affects millions across our nation, spanning informal settlements, townships, affluent suburbs, peri-urban and rural areas alike. As a disciplined force of the left, the African National Congress is deeply committed to our revolutionary mission of creating a better life for all our people. The cornerstone of Priority 3 reflects our determination to tackle head-on the high cost of living, to ease the burden, particularly for the downtrodden, the working class poor, and the lumpen proletariat. This priority signifies our unwavering commitment to elevating the most vulnerable segments of our society, addressing economic hardships, and paving the way for a more sustainable, equitable, and inclusive future for all. We shall address the cost of living to render everyday life more affordable for everyone, including workers, the working class poor, unemployed individuals, women-led households, and the middle class by addressing the cost of essentials such as food, housing, healthcare, energy, transport, and wages. In terms of this manifesto, the African National Congress further commits to a structured program to prioritize food security through VAT exemptions of essential food items, the promotion of household food gardens, and accelerated land reform. There will be a strong focus on the provision of basic services for all, particularly the expansion of subsidized services for the indigent and the poor, such as housing, water, and electricity. Equitable access to quality education and healthcare will be strengthened, including the support for the implementation of the National Health Insurance. Other measures will be implemented to ensure affordable student accommodation, a national minimum wage aligned to inflation, and strengthening of existing social grants. With regard to the health and education systems, further elaboration will be provided by the Committee on Education, Health, Science and Technology, who will soon brief the media. That will be the near future. The committee will indicate that regarding education, equality of opportunities has reached near equilibrium, with South Africa having achieved universal access to basic education, including for girl children. Nonetheless, the challenge remains the quality and content of education outcomes, with the average learner performing poorly on key global indicators such as reading and literacy. The 2024 manifesto commits the African National Congress to work together with our people to further improve education and health outcomes, and to develop skills to build capabilities of all citizens, as well as to improve the lives of millions of our people in order to eradicate inequality. Working together, more can be achieved. On the comprehensive social security, in this regard, our manifesto focuses on deepening the comprehensive social security system whilst improving our health and education systems. For with just those three, we would have greatly invested in our shared futures. This briefing focuses attention on the evolving comprehensive social security system and related matters, which address the structural underdevelopment and poverty, particularly in black communities and amongst women, children, the elderly, and people with disabilities. Many who sit in the opposition benches and beyond have for some time tried to cast aspersions on the comprehensive social security system. Despite the criticism and the efforts by opposition parties to cast aspersions on the comprehensive social security system and by inference the social protection system, we in the African National Congress see this system as a tangible investment towards achieving a quality life for all. They have failed to recognize the positive impact it has provided for over 24 million South Africans. For at the dawn of democracy, there were fewer than 2 million grant recipients. And of course, at that time, all of us would know that the major focus of this was on the white community. Today, there are over 26 million such recipients, the majority of whom are children and those in distress. No doubt, there may have been unintended consequences to the social grants, which we are determined to rectify as soon as they surface. We intend to deepen particularly the child support grant, and move closer towards a basic income grant. We shall have to explore certain conditionalities by which we can encourage other economic and social indicators such as market participation, health, and education, amongst the others. Nonetheless, there are studies abound which confirm that social grants reduce poverty and that the child support grant enhances women's empowerment and control over the well-being of children, as well as enhances the women's household decision-making in financial matters and general household spending. The child support grant has a positive impact on fighting hunger and enhancing school attendance and healthcare. Social grant aid investment expenditure by poor household and job search activities. At over 2,000 rand per month, a single old age or disability grant lifts the household beyond the second decile in the income distribution. The grant enables investment through participating in stokvels, savings, and other investment groups. The manifesto is our commitment, therefore, to strengthen our comprehensive social security system, to reduce poverty, vulnerability, social exclusion, and inequality through social assistance, and to protect the value of social grants for children, the elderly, and persons with disability. Work is underway to explore ways to prevent vulnerability and destitution as a result of the loss of income through social insurance for workers. The ANC-led government also continued the social relief of distress, the SRD grant, benefiting around 7.8 million people, and continues to work on developing targeted basic income support for the most vulnerable within the fiscal constraint. The ANC manifesto has put in the plans to work together with our partners to do more to consolidate, advance, and modernize our basic services to leave no one behind. And on building the asset base, however, we note that the comprehensive social security system is not enough to sustainably lift the vast majority of South Africans out of poverty. We must find means by which we also build their asset base. Beyond the provision of the social safety net, there is a huge responsibility to create sustainable and independent livelihoods for all able-bodied citizens. This requires the government to strengthen support for skills development, entrepreneurial development, building the small and medium and micro enterprises and cooperatives. Using various instruments, the government will focus on the promotion of self-employment and job creation by these sectors. Economic transformation and financial sector reforms will be utilized to promote the creation of cooperative banks and to ensure development finance institutions are adequately resourced to provide affordable finance for small enterprises and social enterprises, particularly for the unemployed, for the women, for the youth, and other vulnerable groups. Hence, our manifesto also pays attention to ensuring better access to land and ownership, for everything starts with the land. By the way, that was the first act of dispossession by the colonial masters. We will therefore accelerate all efforts to ensure that our land redistribution and land restitution programs are accelerated. The Committee on Economic Transformation, Local Government, and Legislature and Governance will elaborate on these important aspects, and I think that already has been done by the Economic Transformation Committee. From the advent of the Reconstruction and Development Program, the RDP, the Growth, Employment and Redistribution Strategy, GEAR, and now the National Development Plan, NDP, we have significant strides in policy formulation to advance social upliftment. Various programs will be implemented to promote youth development and reduce various challenges that consume our youth. Youth unemployment remains a crisis. Substance and alcohol abuse are major challenges in our communities. Dagga, heroin, nyaupe, cocaine, tick, and other such substances contribute to criminality, violent and risky behavior, as well as reckless sexual activity, teenage pregnancies, sexually transmitted diseases, and school dropouts. Various social development and employment creation programs will be employed to embrace the energy, the creativity, activism, and imagination of the youth to be prepared as the future of our country. Pro-poor policies such as the providing free health care for the pregnant women and children under 5, offering free housing for the poor and providing clean running water, dignified sanitation, and reliable electricity for previously marginalized have been further solidified in liberated South Africa. These efforts encapsulate the ANC's enduring commitment to fostering a more inclusive and equitable society and leaving no one behind. 30 years later, South Africa is now widely celebrated for the protection of workers' rights, as well as the focus on the rights of women, youth, and people living with disabilities, children, and the LGBTQIA+ community, and other persons. The African National Congress is committed to mobilize all sectors of society to promote freedom, peace, safety in all communities, and particularly the prevention of violence against women and children, the prevention of gender-based violence and femicide. Mobilization of all stakeholders strengthen the protection of rights and dignity of children, youth, older persons, persons with disabilities, and members of the LGBTQI community, and continues the fight for women's emancipation and the creation of a truly non-sexist society. The relevant committees will further elaborate on the strategies to promote and defend the rights of all South Africans against racism, sexism, gender-based violence, homophobia, discrimination, and other intolerances. They will outline actions planned against drugs, organized crime, gender-based violence, and femicide, and the fight to uproot corruption. One of the achievements of our constitutional democracy, which is understated, is the level at which the LGBTQIA+ community is protected in terms of Section 9 of our Constitution. To this end, we are concerned by the recent wave of African states taking anti-human rights approach to sexual orientation. In the spirit of building a better Africa and a better world, we have the view that engagement should be pursued with our sister countries on the continent. On implementation of these provisions of the manifesto, we believe that the strength of the 2024 manifesto is the focus on implementation. Provisions of this manifesto will be translated into programs by relevant sector deployees. The focus of this manifesto is the emphasis on effective planning, implementation, and monitoring. The ANC will ensure that public representatives and the civil service will remain accountable in their conduct and in the performance of their responsibility to fulfill the public mandate. Monitoring will ensure correction of challenges and consequence management to restore public trust and confidence. The ANC commits to ensuring the selection of honest, capable, and dedicated leaders and to rectify past mistakes committed. As a movement graced by illustrious figures such as Comrade Nelson Mandela, Comrade Albertina Sisulu, Comrade Yusuf Dadu, Comrade Ruth First, and others, we stand proud as a movement that has always been on the right side of history. These comrades rank amongst the most distinguished revolutionaries of the previous century, embodying the spirit and resilience that have defined the African National Congress. Their contributions to the struggle for freedom, equality, and justice in South Africa have left an indelible mark in our history and continue to inspire generations. We seek to uphold their legacy by doing right by the people of South Africa. The manifesto document itself is an important labor of love from the National Executive as well as the various provincial executive, regional executive, and branch executive committees together with our tripartite alliance. It therefore articulates our collective aspirations and is a reflection of lessons learned, gains to be consolidated, and a development trajectory to accelerate South Africa onto a revitalized, secure, and sustainable growth path. Consequently, as you know, the manifesto focuses on 6 cardinal priorities, which includes our jobs plan, building our industries to include an inclusive economy, investing in people, defending democracy and freedom, advancing freedom, and building a better Africa and the world. However, with the effects of COVID-19 and changing global macroeconomic environment, we've recently had some setbacks. We're therefore duty-bound to do more and do faster. This is because, as oath-bearing members of the African National Congress, we know that it's only a caring organization and government that can ensure that all South Africans reach their full potential so they can contribute to the growth of Africa and her children. Therefore, in conclusion, South Africa started the journey to a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society which guarantees a better life for all, guided along this journey by our Constitution. The National Development Plan sets our immediate national aspirations to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality by 2030. Democracy brought together our people from diverse backgrounds to work towards a common vision of a united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and more equal South Africa. Our journey towards social cohesion, social solidarity, and national unity must therefore continue. The ANC calls on all women, youth, urban, business, rural, labor, faith-based organizations, civil society, traditional leaders, taxi associations, the LGBTQI plus people, and people with disabilities, the middle strata, intellectuals, military veterans, students, our diaspora, sports, arts, and cultural workers, traditional healers, to join us to defend and advance our freedom so that together we can do more as active citizens of our beloved South Africa. Working together with our people, we believe the African National Congress possesses the political will, the governance experience, and the wherewithal to get things done. We dare not fail. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The question around what are these steps, I think the major issue for us is trying to protect food security, to ensure that people have got access to nutrient foodstuff. In particular, the VAT exemption should focus on staple food. You know, the carbohydrates that people utilize on a day-to-day basis, particularly, you know, that's maize and rice and those kinds of food, and then the source of proteins, eggs, milk, and so on. These are the areas that need a lot of protection, and therefore there'll have to be a consideration around those types of food stuff, but obviously you would need a standardized list that covers all of those. But effectively that looks at essential items that every house requires, bread and all of that. So I think you would therefore need a properly structured list that covers a lot of that. The other issue is the promotion of community and home gardens. A lot of people can actually, you know, get homegrown fresh vegetables at no cost because they produce them themselves. They're very nutritious, and therefore it's an issue that needs to be promoted. It's a standard, you know, source of easy access to affordable food, as it were. Then there's also a focus on dealing with the issue of price fixing. We've seen how some of the big companies have colluded in you know, fixing the prices and therefore artificially raising the cost of commodities. This will be dealt with, and I think in the past, Competition Commission was actually primed to deal with this so as to protect the poor. Then there's a whole basket of basic services which have to be, in the case of the poor, the indigent, have to be protected. Water, Of course, housing for everyone who would get the government housing, the subsidized housing, we know that those are free. But issues of water, electricity, the free basic services have to be looked at, and therefore due to sharpen the ability of the municipalities to identify those particular communities, create a list or an indigent list of people who will not be under pressure because they are unable to afford those paying for those services, and yet they are essential. So that those kinds of issues are the ones that we're going to be focusing on. Obviously, the cost of transport is another one, and in this case, the issue of the transport subsidy is something that government will also have to work on and emphasize. Around the area of national minimum wage, the focus will be about trying to make sure that it is sensitive to inflation, and so it doesn't actually create a distorted situation where the national minimum wage is not able to give relief in line with with inflation. Then the solar power, there's also some subsidy that has to be considered at that level, apart from the installation fees that have been also introduced. So the other area which is also a matter of concern raised by the youth and the student is the student accommodation that has to be kept, because there's a lot of price gouging that has been identified at that particular level. So these would largely be some of the areas that we have to focus on in dealing with the cost of living. Then you raised another issue in relation to, I think my colleague here, my comrade has dealt with it in a way, and that is the issue of the sustainability of the comprehensive social security system, and that it might be a reflection of a dependent state that's been created, and he says it has been addressed. But let me say that we always see that the comprehensive social security system is an intervention to deal with crisis. But we have raised at the same time the need for us to focus on the financial reforms that have to go into promoting cooperative banks, small business banks, access to loans, so that our township economies, so that small businesses, cooperatives can actually create jobs and create employment, and whilst at the same time creating a sustainable life. This for us is the way to go, and it will be also at the back of a broader base of economic activities that will be able to see our economic growth. So the concern as well about the economic growth is true. We have been affected by COVID-19, but apart from that, I think all of us would have loved to see a much better growth than what we're seeing now, with job creation also associated with it. So the whole strategy has been outlined in relation to how we want to focus on industrialization, obviously at the back of having corrected the energy security issues, and also the focus on various commodities that should be looked at for value addition, and also looking at mechanisms to encourage production and industrialization inside the country, so that you don't just export raw products, as it were. All around these issues, we have to look at, we've heard quite a bit about the new areas such as green energy opportunities that we have to deal with. We've had the cannabis industry with its width and breadth. So these are some of the areas that we are looking at, how to actually help to broaden the base of our economy, but also to increase economic growth. So there would obviously have been a little more discussion at that level. We raised the issue of accelerating land redistribution, which is also very important as a basic asset that we need for people to actually begin to create their own assets. So let me say, we consider this work as work that is in progress. We're focused on the issue of implementation, just to mark the fact that we have heard and we've listened to the criticism of how we've got good policies, but there's been poor implementation. That is why I'd actually raised the aspect here that says that the issue of planning, implementation, monitoring, so that there's consequence management, so that there's correction in time before we miss the deadlines. All of these are part of the lessons that we have learned of what over the years we've actually been receiving criticism about. I hope that does help to clarify the issues. Thank you.